Namaskar friends. Today I will talk about a port in Iran. A port that could redefine Asia's geopolitics. A port that is at once a story of ambition, of strategy and of endless delays. That port is Chabahar, partly developed with India's help and often described as India's gateway to Central Asia. It is a port that was supposed to change India's geography to bypass Pakistan to open doors to Afghanistan and Central Asia. A port that was India's answer to China's Gwadar located in Pakistan. I am Tilak Devasher and you are watching The Great Game Reloaded. For years, Chabahar has been described as India's lifeline, a strategic outpost, a game changer. But today, that lifeline is under threat. Because Chabahar is not just a port. It is a case study in geopolitics and how sanctions, rivalries and big bar politics can make or break projects. Because the United States has pulled the plug. Washington has revoked the waiver that allowed India to work at Chabahar despite sanctions on Iran. So the question is this: what happens to Chabahar now? Why does it matter so much to India? Let's start with the basics. Chabahar is a city in Iran's Sistan-Balochistan province. It sits on the Makran coast, along the Gulf of Oman, close to the Arabian Sea, and crucially, it is located barely 1,000 kilometers from India's Kandla port in Gujarat. It is Iran's only oceanic port. It lies just outside the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's busiest oil choke points. That makes it unique, because most of the Gulf ports depend on the Straits of Hormuz, a choke point vulnerable to blockades. Chabahar is not. It opens directly into the Arabian Sea. Now here's the catch. Just 172 kilometers away from Chabahar towards the east lies Gwadar in Pakistan. Gwadar is being developed by China as part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or CPEC. It is a jewel in Beijing's Belt and Road crown. So Gwadar for China and Chabahar for India. That is how great port rivalry of the Indian Ocean was born. But let's rewind a bit. The story of Chabahar goes back to the 1970s. The Shah of Iran wanted to build a deep water port there. The idea was to create an alternative to the congested port of Bandar Abbas. But then came the Islamic Revolution of 1979. The Shah was overthrown. The project stalled. In the 1980s, Iran was consumed by its war with Iraq. Chabahar was forgotten. The idea was revived in the 1990s. Iran wanted to develop the unserved Sistan-Balochistan province. At the same time, India was looking for ways to reach Afghanistan without having to go through Pakistan. The two countries found common cause. In 2003, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Iranian President Mohammad Khatami signed an agreement to develop Chabahar. But progress was slow. Then came the Iran nuclear crisis. From 2006 onwards, the US imposed multiple sanctions over Iran's nuclear program. Western companies withdrew, investments dried up, and Chabahar went into cold storage. India had to walk a diplomatic tightrope, balancing its ties with Iran on the one hand and its strategic partnership with the US on the other. As a result, Chabahar became a victim of geopolitics. Fast forward to 2015. The Iran nuclear deal was signed, officially called JCPOA. Sanctions were lifted and India saw an opening. In 2016, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Iran. Along with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani and Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, he signed a trilateral agreement. India pledged $500 million for the port, 2 terminals, 5 berths and supporting infrastructure. The three countries envisioned a trade corridor, India to Chabahar, Chabahar to Afghanistan, Afghanistan to Central Asia. It was a bold plan, a plan to redraw the map of South Asia. That was the big break. India was finally in business. And soon after came the first milestones. In 2017, India sent wheat to Afghanistan through Chabahar. In 2018, India's state-run company, India Ports Global Limited, took over operations at the Shahid Beheshti terminal in Chabahar. Since then, Chabahar has been functional. India used the port to send wheat and pulses to Afghanistan. More than 75,000 tons of Indian wheat passed through Chabahar. Containers of heavy equipment were shipped for Afghan infrastructure projects. Cargo came in from Central Asia. The port may not have lived up to its full potential, but it proved a point. India could bypass Pakistan. It could send supplies to Afghanistan without relying on Karachi. For landlocked Afghanistan, this was a lifeline. For India, it was a statement that geography need not be destiny. Now let's place this in the regional context. China has poured billions into Gwadar. The idea is to create a maritime hub linked by road and rail to Western China. Gwadar is part of the CPEC, which is itself part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Now here's the twist. India's work at Chabahar would not have been possible because Iran was under US sanctions. In 2018, then President Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal and reimposed sanctions. These sanctions targeted Iran's oil exports, its banking system, its shipping sector. Normally, Chabahar would have been caught in that net. But Washington made an exception. Why? Because America wanted Afghanistan to be stable. It wanted Afghanistan to have access to the sea without depending on Pakistan. So it granted India a special waiver. Chabahar was allowed. For a while, this was a rare example of India's interests aligning with America's. Both wanted to counter Pakistan. Both wanted Afghanistan to survive. So Chabahar regained momentum. India's state-owned company, India Ports and Global Limited, has steadily expanded operations. Cargo has grown. Reports say shipments of food grains, fertilizers and goods to Afghanistan and Central Asia are rising. In 2023, India and Iran began negotiating a long-term contract for the port's operation. Until now, India has been running it on short-term agreements. A long-term deal would give it certainty and confidence to investors. Also, talks were underway to better integrate Chabahar into the International North-South Transport Corridor (INSTEC), a network that links India to Iran, the Caspian Sea and even Europe. That meant faster links to Europe. By 2025, the expectation was clear, a bigger role for Chabahar with expanded capacity and stronger connectivity. But now the sanctions blow has come. Donald Trump is back in the White House. His quote-unquote maximum pressure campaign against Iran is also back. And this time, Chabahar is collateral damage. On 20th September 2025, Washington announced that Chabahar waiver would not be renewed. From 29th September onwards, Indian companies working at Chabahar could face sanctions. The US State Department was blunt. It said, and I quote, "There will be no loopholes in our Iran sanctions," unquote. So why now? Why target Chabahar? 3 reasons. Maximum pressure. Washington wants to squeeze Tehran. Every dollar matters. Chabahar earns Iran money, so it must be choked. Next, the Afghanistan factor has changed. Back in 2018, Chabahar was justified as an Afghan lifeline. But after the Taliban takeover in 2021, America's interest in Afghan stability has waned. So the old logic no longer applies. It is also a pressure point on the Taliban to hand over Bagram Air Base to the US. President Trump seems to have set his eyes on it.
They just went through the Afghanistan total disaster for no reason whatsoever. We're going to leave Afghanistan, but we're going to leave it with strength and dignity. And we're going to keep Bagram, the big air base, one of the biggest air bases in the world. We gave it to them for nothing. We're trying to get it back, by the way. Okay, that could be a little breaking news. We're trying to get it back because they need things from us. We want that base back. But one of the reasons we want the base is, as you know, it's an hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons.
Finally, geopolitics. Trump's Iran policy is about isolation. Any economic lifeline, even one involving India, is seen as a loophole. The result? India's project is caught in the crossfire. The Ministry of External Affairs has acknowledged the US decision. The spokesperson said, and I quote, "We are examining its implications," unquote.
Chabahar, see, I've told you we've seen this press statement which has come. We are looking at and studying or examining its implications.
But why is India so invested in Chabahar? The answer is simple: strategic necessity. Without Chabahar, India is boxed in. Pakistan blocks its access to the West. China surrounds it with belt and road projects. If India wants to reach Central Asia, if it wants to trade with Eurasia, it needs Chabahar. It is also about balancing China. Gwadar is likely to become a Chinese military outpost. Reports talk of Chinese submarines, surveillance ships, and dual-use facilities that could be located there ultimately. Chabahar is India's counter, not a military base, but a strategic anchor. And finally, energy. Central Asia and Iran are rich in oil and gas. For India, importing energy through Chabahar makes strategic sense. So even if progress is slow, abandoning Chabahar is not an option. Take Pakistan. For decades, Pakistan has denied India direct access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Any Indian cargo has to take the long way round, or worse, depend on Pakistani goodwill, which rarely comes. Chabahar changes the game. Through Chabahar, India can bypass Pakistan. It can send goods straight to Iran, then onwards to Afghanistan, Central Asia, and even Europe. Think of it as a corridor. Mumbai to Chabahar by sea, from Chabahar to Zahedan by road and rail, from Zahedan into Afghanistan, then onward to Central Asia. Thus, for India, Chabahar is not just a port, it is a gateway. So what does the US removal of the waiver mean for India? 1. Financial risk. India has invested nearly $500 million in Chabahar. Without the waiver, payments, insurance and procurement will be blocked. 2. Strategic disruption. Chabahar was India's gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Without it, India is back to square one, cut off by Pakistan. 3. Diplomatic dilemma. India is caught between two partners, the US and Iran. Revoking the waiver forces India to walk a diplomatic tightrope. 4. China's gain. If India retreats, China could step in. Beijing has already invested in Iran's infrastructure. It could easily tie Chabahar into its belt and road, connecting it with Gwadar. Imagine both ports side by side under Chinese influence. That would be a nightmare for India and even for the US. What are India's options? Several. Lobby Washington. Convince the US that Chabahar is not about Iran, it is about connectivity. Slow down, but stay put. Keep the project alive, even at a minimal level, until the storm passes. Bring in partners, Central Asia, maybe even Europe. Multilateralize Chabahar so it is harder to target. Alternative payments. Explore rupee-Iranian rial trade, barter or BRICS mechanisms to bypass the dollar. None of this is easy, but abandoning Chabahar would be worse. So here's the bottom line. Chabahar was supposed to be India's answer to geography, a port that bypassed Pakistan, connected Afghanistan, opened the gates of Central Asia. But today, that answer is under threat because Washington has ended the waiver. For America, this is about Iran. For India, it is about sovereignty. Chabahar is more than a port. It is a symbol of India's ambitions. Thus, the great game continues. Thank you for watching. Do like, share and comment. See you soon with another episode. Till next time, I am Tilak Devasher. Namaskar and Jai Hind.